It was never going to be easy replacing Sheldon Cooper. In fact, it was almost sacrilege to try. For 12 seasons, The Big Bang Theory built its universe around the eccentric genius who refused to be normal. Sheldon, portrayed with mechanical brilliance by Jim Parsons, was the eye of the show's neurotic hurricane, an emotionally stunted physicist who wielded his IQ like a lightsaber and his personality like a chainsaw. So when First Marriage, the new spin-off loosely inspired by Sheldon's early adult years, premiered this fall, viewers tuned in with cautious curiosity. Would the show bring the same quirky magic, or merely recycle formulas like an overcooked sitcom reboot? As it turns out, the series' new central character, Quentin Kravitz, is not Sheldon, but he might as well be his spiritual clone. And unfortunately, he brings with him one of Sheldon's most maddening, and narratively problematic, traits: an unshakable superiority complex masquerading as intelligence. The echo of a genius. Quentin, played by theater breakout Lionel Green, is a 27-year-old computer science prodigy with a triple PhD and the emotional maturity of a Roomba. In First Marriage, he attempts to navigate the strange, confusing terrain of love and domestic partnership while remaining utterly convinced of his own intellectual infallibility. Sound familiar? Where Sheldon wielded sarcasm like a scalpel and had a contract for everything, including his friendship with Leonard, Quentin relies on algorithms, logical models, and quantum theory to justify even the most basic decisions in his relationship. From optimizing toothbrush placement to arguing that pet ownership statistically reduces IQ, Quentin's mind is a fortress, and his wife, Mira, is trapped inside it with him. The show leans heavily on this dynamic, and while it makes for some laugh-worthy awkwardness, it also risks repeating the mistakes The Big Bang Theory only narrowly avoided, making a character so rigid, so insufferably convinced of his own genius, that empathy becomes impossible. The worst trait of all. Intellectual arrogance. Sheldon's worst trait, despite his lack of social grace or understanding of basic human interaction, was always his arrogance. He believed he was smarter than everyone, and, more dangerously, that this gave him the right to act like it. What made TBBT work, eventually, was the slow unraveling of this idea. Over 12 seasons, Sheldon was forced, by friendship, by love, by the demands of life, to confront the limits of intelligence. He learned, in fits and starts, that being smart wasn't enough. That empathy, compromise, and vulnerability were not weaknesses, but human strengths. First Marriage, however, starts from square one, and Quentin's arrogance hasn't yet found its counterbalance. He belittles Mira's career in urban planning, dismisses therapy as emotional superstition, and refers to their wedding vows as ceremonial placebo. There's no Leonard here to roll his eyes and humanize the genius. There's no Penny to challenge his worldview. And while Mira, portrayed with warmth and wit by Anika Shah, pushes back, the power imbalance in their relationship often feels too real to laugh at. When genius becomes gaslighting, what happens when brilliance borders on bullying? In episode 4, The Optimal Dinner Argument, Quentin proves to Mira that her family's dietary customs are based on fallacies. He delivers a PowerPoint presentation during a casual dinner, citing studies and biochemical evidence to undermine her traditions. The scene is played for comedy, laugh track and all, but something feels off. It's not just that Quentin is being rude, it's that his intelligence is used to justify his disrespect. Mira's discomfort is real, but Quentin's logic is given narrative superiority. And that's the danger. When shows confuse cleverness with correctness, they enable characters who never grow. They create Sheldons who never get better. The ghost of Sheldon looms. It's hard to imagine First Marriage without Sheldon's shadow looming overhead. The show doesn't exist in the same timeline or universe, but Quentin is clearly a spiritual descendant. He even shares some of Sheldon's verbal quirks, like precision of language and obsessive clarification. You can't be, sort of, pregnant, he reminds a confused friend in episode 2. It's binary. Even the apartment aesthetic feels familiar: whiteboards, symmetrical shelving, a Newton's cradle ticking away in the background like a metronome for madness. But what TBBT understood, and what First Marriage seems to forget, is that characters like Sheldon only work when there is growth. The audience forgave Sheldon's worst traits because they believed he could change, and slowly, he did. Quentin hasn't earned that forgiveness yet. Not because he's too smart, but because he's too proud to admit he might be wrong. Hope on the horizon. Still, all is not lost. The most recent episodes hint at a possible turn. In emotionally significant variables, Quentin's data-driven life falls apart when Mira leaves for a month-long fellowship abroad. Alone, he tries to simulate her presence using AI, only to discover that he misses her irrationalities, her interruptions, her chaos. The moment is subtle, but poignant. For the first time, Quentin realizes that logic cannot replace love, that perhaps his algorithm isn't the only valid one. Could this be the beginning of growth? Could Quentin, like Sheldon before him, discover that the heart cannot be solved by equations? If First Marriage wants to truly stand on its own, rather than live as an echo of the Big Bang Theory, it must give Quentin more than quirks. It must give him evolution. Arrogance might be his worst trait, but it doesn't have to be his final one. Conclusion. The smartest thing is change. Genius is not just what you know, it's what you're willing to learn. In Sheldon Cooper, we saw a character slowly wrestle with the uncomfortable truths of being human. In Quentin Kravitz, we're seeing the same battle begin anew. But the lesson remains. Intelligence without humility is not wisdom. It's just noise. If First Marriage can recognize that, it might yet become more than just another spin-off. It might become a story worth telling. Would you like me to format this as a blog post or turn it into a review-style video script too?